Alright guys, here we are today in the shop working on a BMW 55i N62 series, I believe. We have the V8 motor with the twin turbo overheads. You can see the two twin turbos here and here. Problem is with this car is we're having a lot of oil burning off through the exhaust. So yesterday I went ahead and took the time out to start tearing it down to assess the problem and see where the oil is getting into the exhaust. And we found that these little guys here, which are the PCV valves, you have two, one goes here and the other goes over on this side. We assessed the issue here with them, and you can see we got quite a bit of oil down inside. The whole entire line there is actually full of oil. These may need to be replaced as well. To get to this point, you have to take quite a bit off. It takes about an hour and a half to get to where we are now. You got to disconnect your hoses here to your air cooler for your turbos, and then once you get down into it, you can actually see down in there, this little guy here. See that nice little oil pool there? That's not supposed to be there. This is the turbo on the driver's side, and then we come over here to the passenger side. You get down in there and you look, same thing. We got oil coming in from the, well, I want to say it's coming in from the intake, obviously, or the exhaust outlet, whatever you want to call it. It's coming up through the valve casing, which you can see here's the valve cover on both sides, which I already talked about, the PCV valve. This is where the oil is coming up into the plastic container, which would be these little guys here where it connects. You can see there's a little bit of oil buildup on there too. That's where the PVC pipe, actually one of the lines connects into that as well, which then that goes directly into our port down here where our turbo is. So let's go ahead and just jump into this real quick here. Like I said, this is, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is a pretty big job to do. We have to remove all these little wires. We have to remove the fuel line. We have to remove the pressure, the high pressure gauge for the fuel. The coils need to come out. All this nice stuff here, all this plastics. We may have to get down in and take out the air coolers themselves just to get down in there further to access the front half of the valve cover. And then over here on the driver's side, it's going to be the same deal. We have to be careful not to break anything. A lot of the plastic clips are very fragile. Then we're going to go through here and do the same thing, remove all the coils all the way back. High pressure valve here, take it out, remove the lines. We may have to, I hear that there is a bracket down below that we may have to loosen up to give us some free play on these lines here, just to move them out of the way to remove the valves, being that they come up over the top of the valve cover themselves. But once we get all this stuff out of the way, we don't have to take the whole entire cover off entirely. As you can see, it separates here along the top here, so we don't really have to go too deep, but we have to get all of this stuff off the top of the cover to do so. And the same thing goes for over here. We have to get everything off the top of this cover as well. Like I said, we might have to remove the coolers to get down here and possibly get a few bolts. Hopefully not, but this is what we're looking at here. It is called what went bad in this car. I don't know if you can see down in here or not where the PVC valves actually go. There is a piece of plastic in here. You can put your finger down in there and kind of feel it. That is the top of what they call a oil separator for the PVC valve. Then we have another one over on this side as well, which is why I keep jumping back and forth, because everything that we do on the driver's side we must do on the passenger side, because they're both getting oil into our turbos here down at the bottom where the PVCs meet up with the exhaust. So with that said, and once again, like I said, this is a BMW. It is an xDrive GT. You can see there, GT BMW 55i, and it is, like I said, I believe it is an N62 model. For the V8 motor that's in this, I believe it is an N62 series. And if you do any kind of research on this whatsoever, if you're a mechanic or you're just doing this yourself, if you're doing this yourself and you're not actually a mechanic, I would recommend that you do some research on this before you start digging into it, because there is a lot that you need to do. It calls for 14.5 hours. This, where you see the car is now with all this purdy stuff sitting out here on the ground, this is just 2 hours just to get to the point where we are now, to assess what the issue really is. But there's a lot of things that this car could have wrong with it to be burning oil. Fortunate for us, this car here just needs to have the oil separators replaced in both valve covers where you see those little black holes at. Unfortunately, the only way to get to them is to remove the valve covers, which means that you have quite a fucking bit to remove. So with that said, I will get back to you. I'm going to go ahead and start tearing all these little wires off. I already started unclipping some stuff before making this video. So I'm going to start disconnecting my fuel lines. My battery is already disconnected. And whatever you do, before you start tearing it into this, please, please, please be safe and make sure that you do disconnect your battery, because you have to disconnect your fuel lines, which if any kind of spark happens, you could cause a fire, seriously injure yourself. So just make sure your battery is disconnected before you go ahead and you start tearing into this, and that way you don't short anything out, cause a fire, or hurt yourself. With that being said, once you disconnect your battery, you're good to go ahead and remove your plastic casings here, which would be these. These sit up on top of your heat shield cover. You have to take out your two O2 sensors. They sit in top of here, on top of the manifolds. You can see I have mine removed. You can see there's a hole there, and there's the other hole there. So you have to remove the two top O2 sensors to get the cover off, to give you better access, because this rail here runs across the top of that as well. Once you get these two black air containers out of there, then you can go ahead and start taking the bolts out for that bracket. This cover, you have to remove your two support arms on both sides to get in there as well. And then once you do that, you just pretty much start disconnecting stuff. But you have to be careful, because a lot of these little plastic clips here are really fragile. Like my O2 sensors, they're supposed to have clips that they go into. Here's one of the ports now. As you can see, there's no clip on there. It just basically slides in because of the heat, and over time they become fragile and they start to break. I have the same issue on this side here too. The O2 sensors still work, just the tabs have broken off. So you have to be very careful with those as well. Any kind of plastic pieces that you're really messing with, any kind of clips, you can just hear, you can see these things aren't very strong and sturdy. So after that, like I said, you really have to pay attention to these lines. Be very careful with any kind of plastic clips that you might take off, but you're gonna have to really pay attention to what you do, and make sure that anything that you take off, you put back to where you removed it from. If you have to make a video so you know exactly where everything goes, do that. There is a lot involved in this. It's not just an easy hour to fix. If you're not a mechanic and you really don't have any clue of what you're doing, I would suggest that you take this to a shop and let somebody else who works on cars or knows what they're doing take care of this issue, because it does take at least 14 to 15 hours to do. On that note, I pretty much have explained everything that you need to do to get to the car, to get your car to the point where we are now. I also want to, before I finish this video and start digging into the car a little more, I also want to point out to you, there's this thing back here in the back side on the passenger side. I'm not sure if you can really see that or not. Yeah, there it is here. this hose here that you see running down, you can see me moving it. This hose goes down to what they call, I'm trying to get a good angle here so you can see it, so you can really see exactly what I'm talking about. There you go. You can kind of see a little bit of it, just basically the top portion. You can see the other little vacuum line that runs into it. That is nothing to, it is something to do with your air. It's vacuum and oil. That could cause an issue, as well as oil burning. That's one of the few things I was saying. This car has a lot of issues that could burn oil, that being one of them. That is not a PCV valve. Those little hose things that I showed you that go up here into the valve cover, those are the PCV valves for this particular motor. That piece back there on the back side down below the valve cover is what they call a CCV valve, I believe. It is a cam something vacuum or something like that. I'm not quite sure of the abbreviations, but it has something to do with the camshaft position, and vacuuming does go to that as well. That could be one of your oil issues. I know you see, if you go on YouTube, you will see other videos where they show you the rings have gone out inside the bottom or inside the valve cover itself. That is not the case. This is a 2010 to a 2011 model. This particular model that I have here is burning oil through the exhaust from the PCV valve. The oil air filter is not working properly underneath the valve cover. The valve ventilation system is malfunctioning terribly because of this, and this is the issue that we are looking into fixing, and we are going to fix here. With that said, I hope this video helps you better understand of what might be going on with your car if you have this particular motor, this particular brand of vehicle. On that note, I have a lot of work ahead of me to do. So in about an hour or 2 hours maybe, I will update the video and go from there. And I really do hope that this video here helps you a lot.